We are going to learn the chapter Indigo by Louis Fisher. First, about the author. Louis Fisher was born in Philadelphia in 1896. He served as a volunteer in the British Army. After that, he became a journalist. He is best known for the biography on Mahatma Gandhi, The Life of Mahatma Gandhi. This book was adapted for the award winning film Gandhi, directed by Richard Attenborough. Indigo is an excerpt from the life of Mahatma Gandhi. This chapter highlights the unequal economic system existed during the British rule of India. The British indigo planters exploited the Indian peasants, and the Mahatma came to fight for the peasants' rights, thus giving the message that it is not impossible to win over the powerful British if the people get united to fight against the injustice. Louis Fisher visited India in 1942 and met Gandhi and discussed how Gandhi decided to ask the British to leave India. In 1916, Gandhi attended the annual session of Indian National Congress in Lucknow. There, Gandhi was met by a peasant named Rajkumar Shukla from the district of Champaran. He requested Gandhi to accompany him to his district. Shukla had come to the meeting to complain about the injustice caused by the British landlords in Bihar and wanted Gandhi's help. However, Gandhi could not go with him at once as he had to visit many other places. Shukla accompanied him everywhere, and when Gandhi returned to his ashram, Shukla begged to fix a date. Gandhi was very much impressed by Shukla's determination and story. He asked Shukla to meet him in Calcutta after a few months on a particular date. Many months later, Gandhi found Shukla waiting at a fixed place. Both left for Patna by a train. On reaching Patna, Shukla took Gandhi to the house of Rajendra Prasad, the first president of Free India. The servants allowed Shukla to stay on the grounds as he was a regular visitor. They took Gandhi to be another peasant accompanying Shukla, but they did not allow Gandhi to draw water from the well for fear that he was an untouchable. As Rajendra Prasad was out of the town, Gandhi decided to visit first to Muzaffarpur to gather first hand information on the peasants' condition. Gandhi reached Muzaffarpur at the midnight of the 15th April 1917. J.B. Kripalani, a professor of the Arts College in Muzaffarpur, was waiting with a large number of students. Gandhi stayed at the house of Professor Malkani, a government school teacher, for 2 days. Gandhi commented that it was a rare feat for a government employee to help him, as most Indians in small towns were afraid to support anti British agitators. The news of Gandhi's arrival spread it, and peasants from all over Champaran started to collect in Muzaffarpur. Even the lawyers who represented the peasants came to meet Gandhi. Gandhi was not happy with the amount of legal fees charged. Even the legal proceedings are little useful to the peasants as they could not remove fear from peasants. In Champaran, most of the arable land was owned by British landlords who rented it out to peasants under long term agreements. Under this agreement, the peasants were to grow indigo, a blue dye plant, on 15% of the total land area and hand over the indigo crop as rent. However, as synthetic indigo was developed in Germany, the demand of natural indigo went down and was of little use to the landlords. Hiding the fact, the landlords offered to free the peasants from the 15% agreement if they pay compensation to the landlords. Many peasants willingly signed the agreement and paid compensation. Those who refused to pay compensation, the landlords hired thugs. Meanwhile, the peasants learned the news of synthetic indigo. They realized that they had been cheated and wanted their money back. Gandhi arrived at this point. He visited both the Landlords Association as well as the British Official Commissioner to gather information. They refused to give any information as Gandhi was called an outsider. But Gandhi went to Motihari with several lawyers to continue his investigations. Soon he was given an official notice to leave at once and he declined. Thus, he was summoned to court the next day. The next morning, a large number of peasants gathered in front of the court as they heard that a Mahatma who had come to help them was in trouble. Gandhi helped officials to control the crowd around the courthouse, giving them enough proof that the mighty British can be challenged by the poor Indians. The local authorities were outnumbered, and the judge was afraid to keep judgment and kept on postponing the trial that day as the officials wanted to consult their superiors. Gandhi protested. He admitted that he did disobeyed the order. He also declared that he was there for a humanitarian purpose and he would not leave. Thus, he disobeyed the order to leave and demanded a punishment. The judge postponed the judgment for a few days and Gandhi was allowed to be free without any bail. Gandhi and his lawyer friends had a discussion. Gandhi asked them what they would do if he was sentenced to jail. The lawyer said that they had come to advise him and if he went to jail, they would leave. Gandhi declared that it would be a shameful desertion. Thus, the lawyers were ready to follow Gandhi to jail. To this, Gandhi was pleased and declared that the Battle of Champaran was won. Many days later, Gandhi received a letter from the magistrate that the case against him had been dropped. This was the first victory for civil disobedience in India. Gandhi and the lawyers were busy collecting evidences and documents from about 10,000 peasants. Finally, the lieutenant governor of the province agreed to set up an inquiry commission. Gandhi was made representative of the peasants in the commission. The official inquiry brought out enough evidence against the landlords and they agreed to make refunds. Gandhi agreed on a 25% refund, explaining that even this would help the peasants realize his rights and his power. With the refunds, the landlords also lose their prestige. In a few years' time, the British landlords left, leaving the land to the peasants. Gandhi did not stop here. He also worked hard to improve the social, cultural, and health conditions of the poor people of the district. He called for volunteers from all over India to educate and improve the health conditions of the people. The Champaran episode had begun as an effort to help the poor peasants. It also demonstrated the power of civil disobedience. Gandhi was always concerned about the practical problems of people and not the mere philosophies. He was a man of action. All his efforts were focused on ensuring that Indians would make themselves self reliant rather than depend on others. In the early days of Champaran episode, an English peacemaker Andrews became a devoted follower of Gandhi, and Gandhi's friends wanted him to stay and help them. But Gandhi refused and told his friends that asking an Englishman for support would show their weakness. He stressed upon Indians to become self reliant and learn to solve their own problems. Thus, we can see that helping the poor peasants towards self reliance and freeing them from the exploitation of the British landlords laid the way for India's independence through peaceful means.